Hey everyone, welcome. Welcome to the student interview webinar. If you're online and you can, it would be great if you could just type into the chat box off of there. Matthew says hello from New Jersey. Good evening all from Stephen. I can see you. Well, I'm glad, Craig, you can see us. Hey, yeah, and we'll just let everybody kind of take a few minutes here to sign in, say hello, that kind of thing. Greetings from Chicago. Bill is from Chicago. There we go. Santa Rosa, Houston. Oh, yeah. So great. Fantastic. Hey, guys, I think we're getting some people signing in. This is awesome. Again, welcome to the student interview webinar. This is our third webinar in a series of webinars that the Motorsport-Safety Foundation is now putting on, MSF is now putting on. And it is, yeah, it's going to be an ongoing monthly webinar series, which is really cool, with all of it geared to do one thing, and that is to help you become an even better instructor than you already are. If you're not an instructor, to help you kind of get a little more comfortable doing that. And if you're involved with organizing HPDE events, then these things that we're going to cover over the monthly for the rest of our lives, we will. That'll help you with your organization and your events as well. On this webinar, we have two subject matter experts, the world's greatest student interview instructors. You can tell by their face. We have Bill Wade, Wave, all the way from Louisville, Kentucky, right?
Absolutely.
And we have Eric Meyer, all the way from Indianapolis, Indiana. Eric, I think they have a little racetrack there, don't they, in Indy area? I think so.
They have a wonderful racetrack here.
Yeah.
Love it.
And speaking of great racetracks, I'm actually sitting in the beautiful Osthoff Resort Hotel in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, because I've been at Road America all day coaching. So we're kind of spread around a little bit, and hopefully we won't have any big technical glitches with Wi-Fi internet bandwidth, because I'm running off of hotel internet here. But if we do, we'll figure it out. If there is some kind of a glitch and you kind of pop out, you can always refresh your page. And I have a big kind of a refresh button as well if we ever have a big technical problem. I would be shocked if at some point in time the audio doesn't glitch out a little bit. I'll apologize for that right now, and I'll blame it on the hotel that I'm staying in, because you always got to have somebody to blame, right? Hey, for more information about these webinars, and after the fact, this webinar will be recorded and will be put up onto the MSF's webpage. That's motorsport-safety.org. So if you do a search for Motorsport Safety Foundation, you'll find that, again, motorsport-safety.org. That's the website. And just real quick housekeeping here is, in this chat box over the side here that you've all found, you can type in questions and comments as we go along. I have had comments from people that say, wow, that just gets distracting, because all I end up doing is reading all of that, and I forget about listening to what the presenters are presenting. That big or small little red tab there, you can click on that. It'll move it off to the side so that you don't get distracted by it. And then if you want, you can click it and bring it back in as well. So you can control your little chat box area so that you can watch it or not watch it. I am your moderator this evening, which means that I'm in charge of keeping track of all the questions. If it's a question that needs to be clarified right now, let's say Bill or Eric says something and you're like, what did they say? Or can you define what they mean by that word or phrase or something? You can type in there, and I'll try to keep an eye on that, and I'll stop them from presenting the information that they're in the middle of, and say, hey guys, just to go back, can you clarify that? If it's another question that's more of a general question, I'm going to ask you to save it to the end. And the other thing I'm going to ask you to do is make your questions as short and concise as possible, because I'm going to be sort of making notes of them as we go along. And if you put in this massive, long paragraph, I may miss it completely. I'm going to try to keep up with all of your questions as we go along, but if I miss it, you could feel free to post it again. We'll try to get through them all. Again, we're going to try to keep this around an hour. Eric and Bill have got some great stuff they want to share, some best practices and things, and some examples of what they have found that works. And then we'll then kind of just break it up into a Q&A session after that, and we'll share some time on that. Bill, Eric, you guys ready? Anything you want to say up front?
Got a lot of ground to cover.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, that ended up, there was a big gap there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of my video so that I'm not taking up screen space here. Hopefully that's showing for you guys that hopefully all you got is just the two of them now. And actually somebody said that the video was a little bit went away or something like that. Always feel free to hit refresh, and it tends to fix most problems. Guys, over to you to start talking about the student interview and practices.
Outstanding. Bill, this is fun. I'm excited to do this with you, my friend.
Very much so. Very much so.
Can I put you on the spot to start?
You usually do.
You have an amazing role in BMW Car Club of America. Could you kindly offer a little bit of your background and why you and I are kind of both here? You have a unique ITS position that people should know about.
The title is National Coordinator for the Instructor Training Program for the BMW Club of America. So the BMW Club National Program on standardization of how they train their instructors. So I just coordinate that with the locals, do quite a bit of the classroom for it, but monitor how that's going across the nation, keep the database going, hopefully interface with Motorsport-Safety Foundation with that, and help our committee continue to develop and evolve how we do things. Been doing it for almost 10 years now.
Full disclosure, about how many instructor trainings or ITSs, instructor clinics, do you think you've taught or attended or been a part of?
No, I don't know. I don't know. That would be tough. That would be tough. Quite a few. Not as many as the club has done totally, but quite a few.
Awesome, guys. Bill, I've had an opportunity to work with Bill and be in a lot of his ITS programs, and they're absolutely wonderful, especially the student interview portion that we're going to show in a little bit. Should we ask for Ross to show that, Bill? Start with that.
Sure. What we're going to put up is basically a little checklist that we publish, usually give to every one of the instructor candidates in a laminated little card that you just put in your pocket. Of course, now me being the boomer, that's what I would do. But now you just pull your phone out and take a picture of it while it's up on the video screen, so you can scroll through. But it breaks down what we feel is the crucial parts of the student interview. The student interview is really multifold depending on how the organization you're working for gives you the information on who your student is. If you happen to get it before the event, which is becoming more normal than it used to be, that's a great opportunity to send them an email, introduce yourself, give them a phone call, whichever, but introduce yourself, tell them who you are, when you started, how long you've been doing this, what you drive, what you're looking for out of the weekend, and then ask them similar questions. And it's very low key, no pressure. It's a great way to start a conversation with your student even before you leave to get to the track. That's the best way. Unfortunately, that's not what happens all the time. So then you're left with, okay, Well, you get there the night before, you're unpacking all your stuff, you get your car off, you go register, you get your packet of information, and here's your student's information. So ask them, when you're checking in, ask them, has my student checked in? Is he around in the paddock? Go looking for him. If you got time, go looking for him, and then you can start this interview process just to get a sense of where his head's going to be for the weekend. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. So then you're stuck with the morning of, okay, you're coming in late or he's coming in late. You get that information, go hunt him down. You tried to do this before any of the student meeting or instruction meetings going on. Hopefully you'll get some time then. Yeah, sometimes that doesn't work. So then you're stuck with, okay, he's on the grid. He's got his helmet on. The car's running, and you're hustling to jump in. What do you need to know? What do you need to hear to get comfortable with putting your life in this person's hands? I'm going to say, guys, I'm old. I'm sorry. You're going to put your life in this guy's hands. What do you need to know? What's his agenda? Is there a hidden agenda? Is he telling you one thing but sending you some signals that that might not be the only thing going on? Does he have some buddies at the track with him that he needs to try to impress? Or is his girlfriend sitting up in the stands and she wants to see him go blistering by? So there's tons of ways to get into the guy's head, but you're trying to just understand his personality, understand how he's going to want to learn, and then what you have to do to manipulate the information you carry into that student. And it all starts with the interview. So I'll throw it back to Eric now. Now, what are you going to say?
What am I going to say? Wow, you touched a bunch of things there. Best practices. You started earlier with my experience is a little less than 50%, 5% of the industry is doing matching student instructor assignments and getting them out to the student beforehand. I know some organizations will allow the instructor to initiate that first contact, and will often back that up with here's a schedule, here's the tech form. Basically, all those, it's an extra person to support that which the registrar may have shared, or the novice, or green group, A group, whatever that classroom instructor may have outbound and may have sent out to that student. The instructor has the opportunity in a lot of cases to echo that and have a consistent aligned message. I can't recommend enough that if your organization doesn't do that, to maybe ping on the registrar a little bit, and possibly the chief instructor or a steward in the organization, having that time, and you talked about it earlier, Bill, having that time where you can do some bonding rapport and flush out car related issues well beforehand makes their arrival a lot easier and a lot little anxiety free. What's your best case scenario, Bill, of meeting a student?
Really, best case is getting that information early so you can have the conversations and then say, hey, I'm coming in Thursday night. I'm going to drop my car, drop my trailer. If you're going to be there, we can meet up, drink a beer with him, stand around, talk about his car, talk about him, what his experiences have been, where he's been, and what's he looking for out of the weekend. A lot of times when you ask, what are your goals for the weekend, especially novice students, they'll just kind of look at you like, go fast. Yeah. That's a great goal, but that's not really a lot of helpful information. So if that's the only thing, that they can tell you, then you need to come up with some things for them. Well, have they been there before? Okay, well, then you need to learn the track. You need to be comfortable with the track and lay out some ways of how you're going to do that. If they have been there before, where were they having trouble the last time? Turn 7. I just could never get 7. Never felt comfortable with that. Okay, well, we can work with 7. If they come with real clear goals, I need to get 10 better. I want to get 2 seconds off my lap time. I want to do this. I want to do that. That's great. But that first session out with them, you might identify 5 other things that are way more important than the things that they're thinking are their goals. So the goal thing is really important for them to be able to verbalize what they want out of the weekend, but just keep in the back of your head, that might not be the lowest hanging fruit or the safest things that they need to do. If they're doing some things that are unsafe on the track, you need to fix those things first. So, you know, the best way is just as early communication as you can, either, you know, pre-event or the night before, or as early as possible that morning.
You hit on something really nice with the goals. That's typically the number one question an instructor will ask you. If there's veteran instructors watching this right now, or brand new folks that want to be future instructors, that's what usually happens. Don't be surprised if your student offers something that might be a goal based on what they think it should be, and it might not quite be right. You could acknowledge it in an affirmative, hey, that's great, but there might be other things we want to work on. For example, you might find that this driver is a little bit all over the place and not so safe, even though they've mentioned their goal, and Bill mentioned this earlier, I want to shave 2 seconds off my lap time. And you're thinking after the very first time on track, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. This guy, he can't find 2 seconds. We got other issues to deal with. In these kind of cases, you need to, and this is particularly true for you new instructors, you need to process and keep that in the back of your head that, yes, I've acknowledged your goal, but you also need to have an upfront contract with him that allows you to introduce new topics, new goals, new priorities that really might come before his or her goal achievement. So just because, and this is for you new instructors, just because somebody comes in and says, my goal is to go from this group to that group, doesn't mean it's going to happen. That's their objective, and you can help them get there. That doesn't necessarily mean it's achievable. And you'll get that with a little bit more experience and talking to other senior instructors. Bill, we talked earlier about how people want to, in part of the interview process, they love to talk about their car. How do you use that to your advantage from a safety standpoint to uncover the maintenance, or what kind of dialogue or role playing the conversations do you have with that guy when he shows up at track?
Well, you know, is to ask them up front about the car. How long have you owned the car? How many track events have you done with the car? If they say, this isn't my car, I borrowed this car, it's my brother-in-law's car, it's, you know, somebody else's car, I've never driven it before other than on and off the trailer, you know, little red flags ought to be kind of popping up with that. You got to see how conservative he's going to be coming up to speed with that car. If he thinks that he's going to jump in there and break a lap record, that's probably not going to happen, and you need to be in control of that. We like to tell our candidates, you're never in control of the car, but you need to be in command of the car. You're not the one behind the steering wheel, so you're not in control, but you need to be command of the student. So that's something that you need to kind of set the groundwork pretty early on. If he's coming up with something about, oh, I just put a new 500 horsepower motor in this car, it used to have 150, I'm really looking forward to seeing what it'll do. You know, start setting the groundwork of, well, we're going to ease into that. You know, we're not going to figure that out on the first lap or even in the first session. We're going to ease into that and see how it's going to affect the way you drive. If they've made major suspension changes, again, let's ease into that. If they're first weekend on our compound tires, you know, any major change like that on something that's not quite normal, you've got to set the tone of, well, we're going to take it easy on this and see what we can do with, you know, being very careful and easing into it. You know, if they're very knowledgeable about the car, if they can tell you how old the tires are, what brake pads they're running, how long have they been on the car, how old are the rotors, how old's the brake fluid, you know, some of that kind of stuff. Use that to your advantage on being able to help set the stage for the progress for the weekend. You know, I had a student one time that had a totally shelled out Chevy Cavalier, an automatic. Why, I don't know. I never got that quite situated, but looking at the car, he had cross-drilled rotors on it. and looking at it, there was a crack going through like 3 of the holes on one of the rotors. And I was like, dude, we're not going anywhere. I'm not going out with those rotors like that. Oh, well, I didn't even know that was a bad thing. So, you know, obviously whoever looked at the car before he got to the event, if that really happened, they didn't know what they were looking at either. So again, all these little bells and whistles, red flags ought to be going up when you're talking about the status of the car and what he's done to it and how long it's been around. So it's a safety thing for you. It's a comfort level thing for you. Again, you're putting your life in their hands. So you got to be really comfortable with that.
That's a great point. I was talking with Ryan Staub from Lockton Motorsports about this. He's one of your BMW CCA chief instructors. And we were talking about safety related, the car in the interview with the student. And he said, you know, Eric, a lot of the trend has because of COVID and just in general has been to go paperless, right? A lot of folks are showing up with their car, and the involvement of tech at an event is less and less and less. The need is still there for an instructor who has to ride right seat to engage in that car, because they're getting in that car regardless of who signed the little piece of paper that said, yeah, I've checked all the boxes. Some of the things that I've heard and in talking with Ryan and Jim Pomeroy from Chin and David Ray, who was really helpful. I did some research before we on this subject. A lot of these organizations and guys, all those folks who are chief instructors or leaders in large organizations, they will use the safety review of the car as a part of the interview. And as you mentioned before, they will say, hey, tell me about how did your car get signed off? Was this you? Was this your brother-in-law? Do you take it to a shop? And as Ross likes to say, when you peel the onion, you learn more and more information. And you might find that, yes, this guy said, yeah, you know what? I did all the checks and balances on my car. You could stop with, okay, great. Or you could continue to say, hey, tell me a little bit more about that. Oh, well, I used to own a motorcycle dealership, and I was a wrench. So all this stuff is really, really easy. Do you do all the work on the car yourself? Absolutely. I actually built this car. I put the cage in. I did this. I mounted the seats. I could tell you everything about this car. And in addition to that, I keep a log and a journal, right, with a 3-ring binder with everything in it. Guys, if you can drill down and find out the level of detail, if that exists for that driver, or the other hand, this guy just kind of showed up, that's important stuff to uncover, especially in this day and age where a lot of the safety checks and balances are really on the shoulders of the student. What do you what's the process like across the board right now, BMW, Bill, for tech inspection for your customers when they're coming in?
Well, old school, I mean, I've been doing this since the 1900s, so things have changed a little bit. You know, we used to have, you brought the car with a tech form that, like you were saying, is filled out by, you know, a shop, a garage somewhere. And then you brought it to either the track or the host hotel or whatever. And somebody from the chapter crawls all over it with a flashlight, and he's looking at brakes, and he's wanting to see, you know, fresh brake fluid, and he's doing all kinds of things. The club has actually backed away from that on-site inspection. There's quite a bit of liability attached to that. If something happens to the car, you know, somebody can come back to them and say, well, you looked at the car, you said it was fine. You know, what happened? So the club is now distanced themselves a little bit from that, saying it's the driver's responsibility to be sure that that's all taken care of properly. I understand that. I'm not a lawyer. I don't want to be a lawyer. But you still got to sit right seat. You still got to get in that car and go hurling down the track with the person. Sherry's already got me saying, you know, or girl. Oh, you've got to be comfortable with that. So you've got to you got to lean a little harder on some things on that. I'm not saying you got to crawl under it and look at ball joints and you know, anything like that, oil leaks, but you know, are you comfortable with hearing the guy saying, "Oh, I do all my work"? Oh, are you a mechanic? No, I own a flower shop. Okay, you know, tell me a little bit more about that. How long have you been doing this on the side or whatever? Where'd you get your training? How to, you know, and ask him, why should I feel comfortable with that answer? You know,
Yeah.
why should I get in the car? And kind of see where that goes.
Hey guys, can I interrupt for a moment?
Can we say no?
I
We're
have a
having fun
question.
here.
Yeah, I know we're all having fun. That's the idea. So I have a question that you guys have touched on, but I'd really like your thoughts on like a real one sentence answer kind of a thing. Why do we do student interviews? What is it important? I mean, why bother?
You can
Come
learn,
on.
Eric.
you can learn everything under the rainbow about why that customer, why that student, why that driver is there by asking questions. And the whole purpose is to understand what they're trying to get out of the event. Guys, it's again, this goes for new instructors, because I know all of you senior instructors out here have seen this. You got a guy that's doing a bucket list fulfillment because his wife bought him a coupon and it expires in 2 weeks, and he's kind of doing it because he has to. And there's a guy on this end that wants to go racing, or he wants to be an instructor, or he just sold his company and he wants to do something crazy, and he's going around the US and going to one event a weekend. You got to uncover this, and you got to be in their shoes and know where they're coming from. Ross, I'm interested to know how you'd answer that. You wrote a couple books on the subject.
Let's go, Bill. What's your thoughts? And then I'll share mine too. So.
Well, again, you're putting your life in this guy's hands. So what's the comfort level going to be? Why is he here? What does he want to do? You know, you've met people that you're immediately just kind of push back a little bit and go, ooh, I don't know. I mean, in the day and age of all this, you know, pre-event stuff, I was running a school for my chapter, and all this guy wanted to do was show pictures of the bottom of his hood that he had airbrushed this beast of something under his, you know, Dodge Charger, and how it had 800 horsepower and all this kind of stuff. We ended up talking him out. Did we talk him out, or did we just say, dude, we're not for you? Of coming to the school, because we weren't going to be able to give him what he wanted. He wanted a full race weekend out of our HPDE. So if we hadn't done any of that pre-event, he'd have showed up at the track, and it would have been a very, very awkward conversation.
Fantastic. And to me, you guys have both touched on this, but it's understanding the objectives of the student, I think, is so critical. I've made the mistake, and I've also learned from that mistake of trying to teach somebody something that they didn't want to be taught. And that's a mistake, because it's not only is it frustrating for me, it's frustrating for the student, and it's not really dealing with what they want. So I think the big thing is understanding the objective. I think the other part is, and you guys have touched on kind of mechanics of the interview, in terms of, you know, what are you trying to get learning styles? You're trying to understand what their experience is, how they think, that kind of thing. But I think it also builds a strong relationship and a trust that you can't get unless you do that. Or you can get it, but it's going to take a lot longer. You can start to build that relationship so much earlier with this interview process. And I think a couple people have actually touched on here in the chat box, is saying, you know, the interview, it's not a one-way conversation, right? And it's not a one-way process. It's a two-way thing. Part of it is the student gets to know you as well, because of even if all they learn is the types of questions you're asking. And, you know, by the way, and Bill, if you're okay, we can maybe pop up the BMW CCA checklist.
Sure.
Because somebody's asked about, you know, can we kind of see what that looks like? But I think that can be done. In fact, let me pop that up while we're looking at this thing here, and while I'm talking about it. But it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to look at this thing and go, boom, 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 and just go down the list and talk about it. But if the student sees that I am really, really interested, and they understand that I'm interested in knowing about them as a person, that just opens the door for a great working relationship. So that's how I'd answer the question, Eric. And I trust you to turn it around and put it back on me to ask that question. So Bill, Eric, do you guys want to talk through this checklist?
There's so many. If we're going to stick with the bonding and rapport step, which is sort of what you alluded to earlier, a lot of I think we can pull it off and then maybe come back to it, Ross. If the first steps are bonding and rapport, those people that have those instructors that have customer facing jobs or careers are naturally a little more or often, not naturally, often a little more skilled with it as those that might be in technician type positions that might not have a lot of human contact or interface. I'm generalizing, but as a general rule, you get a yappy sales guy in the car as an instructor. Yeah, it's really easy for him to start talking and making friends and saying, hey, where are you from? And where did you get this card? How did you happen to pick this color? Why did you go with the automatic versus the 6-speed? Those initial bonding and rapport efforts are absolutely critical and wonderful. And if you're a real alpha male, alpha female personality, you don't want to skip over those. You want to get to where are they from, because your aunt might be from there and you went there as a kid and now you have an interesting connection, right? This might be that person's first car and you can relate a story of your first car, right? You might find out that this is their third track day on this event and it's yours as well. Maybe it's not your home track. You're traveling cross country. So all of these things that you can extract, that's a lot of the Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I would get that book or get that resource if you're not familiar with it. And if gift of gab's not your best friend, because this is going to just help you in the bonding and rapport process that you start on the phone via email, or like Bill said, right up at grid where you're an instructor and you get assigned somebody at the last minute. How do you go?
And I think two of the other really important ones are, kind of what do you do for a living? Or if he says, well, I'm an engineer, most engineers are pretty analytical. It's either off or on, white or black, not a lot of gray, not a lot of fluff. But if he answers, well, I'm an artist, or I'm a writer, or I teach high school or something like that, you can approach things a little bit differently with them. And the other key one, I think, is what are your other hobbies? My buddy Terry Geiser out there said, don't forget to ask about horseback riding or bicycling or water skiing, snow skiing. They understand weight transfer. They understand what happens when you shift weight around and do some things in the car that you're going to be able to explain a whole lot different than somebody that, doesn't have any idea of the concepts of that. So those kind of things help really early establish how much communication or what form of communication you're going to be able to use.
You hit on something great when you just said engineer. And I like to use Ross's strategy of peeling the onion. And I'll say for this engineer to find out which box they go into, well, it's like, what kind of engineer are you? What did you study? Oh, you studied civil engineer. Were you going to go down that path? Oh, your old man had a company that was a civil engineering company and you grew up around this. Did you have other options as you grew up as a kid? Well, my mom was a teacher and I was either going to be a teacher or I was going to work in dad's business, right? You start peeling the onion and learning a little bit more. You get some more some more ammo. And that's the same way when you ask about how people learn about hobbies. I'm glad you brought that up, Bill. You can easily go down the road and get somebody talking about their hobby. Go down a path of how did you learn that? How did you learn another hobby? And ask them what worked and what worked well and what didn't work well. You get that person that's really kinesthetic, and he'll say hands-on, I got to do that. They'll tell you right out of the bat, don't tell me how to do something, just let me figure it out. That driver wants to feel it, and you can help him in the paddock and on the track. Right, Bill? You already know where I'm going with this. Yeah.
Right, which is fine until you go into turn one without, hitting the brakes at 300 mark when you're really supposed to, because he wanted to figure that out. So, there's some give and take there.
We talked about data a little bit earlier, and a lot of younger folks coming in with data. If you're an instructor and you're looking to click with more folks, a lot of new drivers that need instruction will have just about that much data or want to know. If they happen to be engineers and mechanical engineers or teachers or something to do with numbers and graphs, maybe they work in quality departments, knowing enough about data, which is usually this much, can help foster a relationship and create a kind of a friendship, a bond along something, because they're going to look to you to say, hey, help me understand this. And if they are a super numbers person and you're not as an instructor, you either need to kind of pass on that altogether or go study overnight so you can come back and be subject matter expert. Because that student, especially if it's their first weekend event, they're going to remember you forever. And whatever you can do to help them and bring them back to your organization is great for them and good for your club.
Absolutely. Going back to this checklist, and the checklist will be available at the end as one of the resources. But after you get through the social conversation here, you want to kind of do the safety review and check the rule and set the rules of conduct. So go through some of the things that we've already talked about: tires, brakes, modifications. How long have you owned it? One of my favorite questions was, sorry, I'm going to have dogs barking here for a second. Scott Hughes at my very first driver school way back asked everybody to hold their hands up who drove their car to the event. And, the majority of us held our hands up, and he goes, do you want to drive it home? And everybody was like, oh, yeah. That plants the seed of you can't do anything really, really stupid here if you're going to be driving your car home. So, that kind of sets a safety tone for you there. And then you want to walk around the car, take a look at it, be sure all the gear's out of it. I don't know how many times you go into turn one and you hear this horrific thump in the back. You think the whole rear end of the car is going to fall off, and the guy left his jack stands in the trunk, or his jack or a fuel bottle or something. Some clubs will have a clean tech person that will look at that kind of stuff before they go out for the first time. Some don't. So just be sure all that stuff's out. Seat belts, harnesses, all of that. You might not be an expert on how those are really supposed to be put together, but if you see something that looks kind of hinky, something that doesn't look quite right, go ask somebody, because that's a critical area that you can't get wrong. If the harnesses aren't set right and something doesn't look right, if you see something, say something. Get somebody that does know what they're looking at to take a look at it, because it can't fail on you on that one. And if somebody's got quite a bit of track time and they're trying to be a little more boisterous about how great they're going to be, quiz them on the flags real quick. What do you do in a red flag situation? Where should you go? What should you do in your car? What does that mean? What's the black flag mean? What does it mean when it's rolled up and pointed at you? What does it mean if it's waving? Do you know where the flag stations are at this track? Can you name me, 5 corners that have flag stations here? And just try to get the sense of how much experience this person's really got. You want to take the next one?
I'm tracking right with you. Yeah.
Hey guys, can I jump in here? And one of the things that is cool about this, I mean, it's a fantastic checklist, and yeah, Bill, thank you to BMW CCA for offering this up and everything. But I just want to point out that in the past day, I've had 2 or 3, maybe even 4 emails from people that say, and who sent me their checklist. David Dubois was the first one the other day, sent me his personal checklist that he uses. So if your organization doesn't have this, and take this, and if you want to personalize it a little bit, do that. But having that, taking that time to write that down and making this become your checklist is a great idea.
And remember, this is
all I wanted to say there.
It's not just a one-time effort where you do it in the morning and you're done. Things change, right? Those jack stands, as you mentioned, Bill, might find their way back into the back of the car. Those tire pressures may not have been adjusted after they left the track and came back in the morning. All of this is an ongoing process.
Absolutely.
Where do we leave off here, Bill?
Well, it's just talking about their driving experience. How many times have they been at this track? What other tracks have they driven? If they've got, if they boast about, well, I've had 30 weekends of driving experience, and it's only been at one track, and they're not at that track this weekend. Well, that's a big difference. You can be a really, really good driver at one track, and if you haven't had a lot of experience at other ones, that can kind of turn around and bite you. The student that's had 30 track days at 15 different tracks is going to approach a new track a whole lot different than somebody that's had it just at one track. So need to talk them through about that one. What groups were they running in? How much instruction have they had? Not everybody puts instructors in cars. The BMW club, you're going to have an instructor until that instructor feels you're safe. And that'll go all the way up to the top level, A-level driver. If they've gone to organizations that you have to ask to get an instructor, that's going to be a different experience for them. They might be offended that they've got an instructor. Well, I don't need an instructor. And then you get in the car and you find out, they really do need an instructor. So you got to play the personality of that one as much as you can. Sorry, I now have my friend right next to me barking. Go away.
Bill, you said something I love to touch on. That person that comes in that has that might be ready to advance. They might share with you as a goal, I'm wanting to get from the group I'm currently in to the next group. There are some best practices that I've seen over the years that will involve taking that student's motivation, their desire to advance, and using that for them, not against them, but for them. And there's something called an upfront contract that you can have in your early interview or bonding and rapport step. And once they were to communicate, hey, I'm trying to get to the next run group, they're really at your they're really in your hands with respect to what you're telling them. Here's what I want to see. And I like to suggest to some folks that when your organization has a solid classroom program, and assuming this person's in a classroom environment, kindly think about engaging that student to say, one of the requirements to advance for me is to have a very detailed dialogue about the classroom. So when you come out of the classroom, Larry, one of the first things we're going to do is I'm going to ask you, tell me about what went on in the classroom. And if you want to take notes for that, that would be very, very helpful, because I'm going to ask you some rather detailed information. Now you get to go down this road. And if Larry is already a note taker, use that to your advantage, because he's going to take even greater notes. If he's not a note taker and he's winging it, say, hey, we're just going to have a conversation about that. Help them and play off of their strengths so that they can put in more effort because they want to advance. They'll typically work harder when you tell them, hey, we can get you there if you do A, B, C, and D, right? If they're not real hot on understanding that their tires are singing out there, tell them one of the requirements to advance for me is I want you to tell me your starting and ending tire pressures every time we're on and off the track. It's your steering wheel. You get to help them, and you can do that in the form of something called a upfront contract and insert whatever learning opportunity you think there is for that particular student.
Absolutely. That's nice. And you touched on one thing about tying it in with the classroom. You know, if you have the opportunity to sit in the classroom in the back of the class away from your student, but go to the same class that he's going to, hear what he's hearing, because sometimes what they hear might not be what the classroom guy said. Example of that, I was down at NCM a couple, well, it's been the last fall, and I had a student go flying up the fastest part of the track, just crazy faster than he'd ever been before without hitting his brakes at all. And we almost didn't get out of that. And I said, well, what the hell happened? Why were you doing this? He said, well, the classroom guy says he doesn't use his brakes here. And I was like, no, I know the classroom guy. He wouldn't have said that. So let's go back to what you were doing before. So what he was saying was actually true, but the classroom guy was driving a Jetta and this guy was driving a Z06 Corvette. So how they approach that one corner, is totally different. But the more that you can support what the classroom guy is doing, the more you can tie into what he's doing and hearing, the student hearing, the better you're going to be. Now, on the flip side, if the classroom guy is doing things that you don't agree with, you got to take that a little gently. Go talk to the chief instructor and say, hey, did you know your classroom guy is saying this and this? Don't trash the classroom guy in front of your student. Don't say he doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't listen to him. Only listen to me. You don't need to go to class anymore. That doesn't work. But if you're hearing things that the CI might not know about, you need to tell him.
Bill, we're getting close to where Ross, I know, is going to jump in a second, and you and I were talking about best practices. What do you see? You get around, brother. You get to darn near about every BMW CCA region chapter. What are some of the best practices that maybe not necessarily where they are at, but what are some of the things you like to pass on to some folks about best practices for the interview?
Well, I keep beating this dead horse, but early communication, getting it out as much as you can. There's also the system of driving evals. That's a digital platform for not only communicating with the student after the fact and how they did, but also sets up pre-interview opportunities there that you can check out and see where they've been. Getting information out of Motorsport Reg, where they've been, what they've done, that kind of stuff. There's a couple chapters that does really good pairings the morning of. They have an all hands meeting where both the student and the instructors are in the same meetings. Not everybody does that. And then, the pairings are called out so you can put a face to a name if you hadn't had that opportunity before. That's really good. Social time at the end of the track day. Just giving you an opportunity to hang out and talk to your student, with a beer in your hand or your preferred beverage, and just, get to know this guy a little bit better, this person a little bit better, to be able to work with them the next day or the next event that much easier. So, it's a big community, no matter what you're driving. It's a big community out there, and the more that we can make it smaller by finding out what we've got similar, the better.
That's for sure. I took some notes for best practices over the past couple of years that I just in preparation. There is Greg Haas is out at Summit Point BSR, and he likes to address his interview before he gets in the car, and he calls it a triage interview. And he offers this. It's pretty neat stuff. And for those of you that know Greg, he is pretending that there's only a few minutes, and it's most critical that he address the sort of the triage priorities. So there's less niceties. There's less, how are you? Where are you from? Oh, wow. Hey, wow. Did you grow up there too? Well, I went to church camp there when I was a kid. He goes right to the heart of the matter, and he calls it triage, only so when they're out on track, he knows he's identified all those areas. And then he comes back, and then he starts adding the relationship based, what's your goals, where are you from, what's your major, things like that. So that's pretty neat that Greg does. Another one I really like is there are a couple organizations that give out paperwork to their students in the classroom that have a track map on it for a reference tool. What does this have to do with the interview? Well, the interview keeps going on and on and on and on. And if you're an instructor and you have a tool like a track map, you can use that as a questioning technique. So when the customer is saying, the student is saying, I'm having a problem in this turn, give them the darn track map and a pen and say, show me where that's at. What do you think you're doing? Have them draw that on there. Doing this in the interview process allows them to understand, so that when they're doing it for real after the first, second, or third session, can be very helpful. And the last thing I got on here is I hope the folks from Chatterbox aren't watching because I'm trying to get rid of those darn this is probably bad. There's a lot of great comm systems out there. And if you're still old school running your 8th generation Chatterbox, consider some of the new in-helmet comm systems that are absolutely phenomenal. They have noise canceling, as many of you know, noise canceling systems. In addition to, you can easily talk to a student when they have running an open exhaust, like an open header type car. I can't recommend those enough. And there's a couple manufacturers out there. It just makes that verbal dynamic in the car, that audio dynamic, that much better. I got one more thing.
But also,
hey guys,
oh, Dad.
Oh, you got more?
I got
well,
one more.
I was just going to say, you talk about great comm systems, but you also got to have a backup. What happens when the comm system fails? Something to talk about in that interview, before, even if it's just sitting on the grid. If I do this, what does that mean? If I do this, what does that mean? Have your hand signals kind of ready to discuss, so you don't go flailing down to turn 1 and you're looking like you're having some kind of seizure or something, and the guy doesn't understand what you're doing.
There's just so much stuff.
Okay, I'm done.
What do you got, Ross? This is your baby from. Are you in a Marriott right now, Ross?
I am not. I'm in the Osthoff Resort. I told you.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Should have been at Siebken's.
So I'm. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Do you want to jump on some questions? Okay. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm kind of getting a little bit of a glitch out there on the audio, but hey, Bill, Eric, there has been one question has been asked, I think 4 or 5 times now, and it is, how does the student interview change now that we're relying more on the lead follow approach to instruction rather than in-car? Any comments on that?
It's even more critical.
Well, to me, it depends on how the lead follow is set up. If you've got the same 2 students or the same pair of students that you're going to have all day, you still got to talk to them. You still got to understand what they're coming from. It actually, I think, increases the need for communication. You're not going to be doing it while you're driving, but the download after the fact and a preload before This is what we're going to do, guys. This is where we're going to, I'm sorry, this is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to go. This is how we're going to do this. You know, where are your problems? What are you looking for? You know, how can we do that? Communication needs to just amp up that much more.
If your organization has yet to hold a lead follow, right? It's next week, next month. Keep in mind, instructors, that those magic moments of the 5 minutes you're in the car all buckled up, talking on the comm system on the mic, those don't exist anymore, and those are really powerful, special moments that often lower anxiety and just prepare that student. Those don't exist anymore in that lead follow format. So you need to put some effort both before and after that to make up for that.
Okay. Actually, this is the comment that was in there that I really like. Ted commented, and he said, communicate early, often, and repeatedly. Ask questions different ways and listen for nuances. And I just thought that was so important, because often we ask a question and we're so quick to wait, or to expect the answer, that we almost start to answer it for them. So we don't really listen. Comments on that?
Yeah, there's the old adage of, you know, we ask a question not to learn, but to respond. You know, we just automatically want to just spew more information back by whatever they said. So I think that's a good point, especially on the nuance, because there's a lot of nuance in this sport that happens at very high speeds. So you got to get that clear. Mr. Meyer.
Okay. Yeah. Eric, if want to comment on it? Or were you not listening? Sorry.
Oh, I was with you the whole time. Sure. I try not to talk as much as I am right now. Sorry. A wonderful technique for a follow-up to a customer question is to literally say, hey, can you say that another way? Often folks will tell me something, I've heard them. When you ask them to repeat it or say that a different way, or say, can you explain that a little bit better? They'll often expound and give you more details. Ross, you're nodding your head. Bill, you're nodding your head. Personal experience as well?
Yep, absolutely.
And I'd add in there to that point, Eric, I think that's fantastic. And I, even if you say, what I'm hearing is this, and then you kind of repeat what they've said, it shows that you really are listening to them. And by the way, a lot of times they might come back and go, well, actually, that's not exactly what I meant. I meant this. So they help with that. So all of that is part of listening. You know, I went through a coach training program years ago, and one of the most difficult thing that we did in this thing is we paired two people up and we stood in front of each other. And the idea was you had to talk. One person had to talk for 2 minutes, while the other person, all they did was listen. And you know how often somebody says, well, you know, I grew up in the Midwest, and, you know, and immediately you go, well, I grew up in the Midwest too. So that thought's going through. So the idea is not to do that. Try it sometime. Find somebody, just pair up and say, talk to me for 2 minutes. And I am not going to allow those little thoughts in my head of what I'm going to say next to even pop in my head. All I'm going to do is listen. It is one of the most difficult things you'll ever do in your life. So listening is a skill that can be developed, though. So I thought that was a really good point that Ted made. Here's a really interesting, good, tough question, I think, that Nicole asked just a little while ago, and it is, what are some best practices to engage with minority students, i.e. women, people of color, during the initial interview? Thoughts on that? Experience? Have you had that experience?
I don't think I'm doing anything differently. Everyone is a driver. They're engaging. If it's a female or a youth, right? Someone that could be under 16, I might change my delivery a little bit, only because of you know, you can't use the same music jokes, right? Because they're going to go, I have no idea what that band is, you said, because, right, they're 30 years younger than you.
Okay, boomer.
Well, Well, what do you do, Bill? What are you thinking?
Well, I would much rather instruct a woman than a guy any day, typically because they listen better. There's no ego involved. But is my delivery any different? I don't really think so. But you know, I can think back on a couple of students that were women. Two of them I know were only there because their husband made them come. And one of them drove all the way around just bawling her eyes out. She didn't finish the event because I had to go have a little talk with the husband. You know, I don't think my delivery is that much different. You just got to be prepared, maybe a non-typical answer that you would get from some testosterone-headed guy.
Ross, I want to change my answer. I believe that
Okay.
instead of say instructing to a gender, I'm digging down enough to find out so much about that person that's what I'm instructing to. That their birth order, are they firstborn, are they lastborn, do they have a twin, are they do they write music? I'm trying to find out so much about them that I'm relating to all those finer nuances and not generically to a gender. I'm going right to that person, regardless of color, sex, age, other. And it's deadly.
Okay, good stuff. Yeah, no, great stuff. Brad had asked earlier, if an interview does not go well and the instructor does not think the car driver should go on track, how do you handle that? And first of all, has that happened to you? Have you ever gone through the interview process to the point where you're sitting there going, oh, this person should not go on track? And then, you know, how do you handle that both with the student and with the organization? Because as we know, sometimes the organization, part of their motive is, well, we get them on the track because they're a paying customer, and which is fair enough. So just your thoughts on that?
Bill?
The only time that I've had a situation like that was the Hellcat driver that I was talking about. And luckily that was all pre-event. So it wasn't a situation where the guy's at the event, he spent money getting there. You know, that makes it very awkward. I think it would have to come down to something being really unsafe before you really want to pull the plug on that. I mean, if it's an attitude adjustment or, you know, something like that that might be handled a little differently, or might be handled that you could do that differently, then that's okay. But if it's a unsafe condition in the car, or the person's drunk, or, you know, obviously impaired chemically some other way, that's a different situation. You try to handle it to a point, but that's also why the chief instructor gets all the big money, and the event organizer, you know, has stayed up the last 3 nights trying to get all the packets stuffed and get all that done too. You don't necessarily have to do all that kind of stuff yourself.
I'm gonna go for, yes, agreed. I'm going for this. In our industry, in the instructor industry, there isn't a big gigantic 82 volume stack of this is how you instruct. There is a lot of tribal knowledge out there that's in each and every one. It's in instructors' heads, and it often doesn't get exchanged very often in a systematic form. And I'll suggest to everybody on here, it's the best resource you could tap into. So in a scenario like Ross just offered, having a challenge, one of the things you can do is, yes, you can go to your leadership, your management, your chief instructors, but go to the senior instructors as well. The difference between the senior instructors and the new instructors is they probably had that scenario happen to them, and then more than once. And if they have, they've learned from it. So I can't emphasize enough how having great relationships with your senior and your lateral instructors are great resources to tap into.
Just on a time check, we're a little beyond the hour. We said we're going to be about an hour. So just going to kind of start to wrap up here a little bit. But, Nicole, I just want to thank you for that question about the, engaging the minority students. Because as you saw in the chat area, there's some great comments about as much about, English as a second language and people understanding. And Vladimir jumped in and said, jargon, how, and Bill, on your checklist, you touched on that in the very end there, is just making sure that your student understands. If you just simply, as part of the interview, bring up a couple of things and say, when I'm talking about a gas pedal, I'm talking about the throttle, because a lot of times people don't know what a throttle is, and there's a lot of those kinds of things. We say unwind a steering wheel. I was at an instructor training session a year or so ago, and an instructor told a story of how at the end of the day was talking to their student, and they're saying something along the lines that the student said something like, well, every single time you told me to unwind, I relaxed my shoulders. And the instructor was saying, unwind the steering wheel. And every single time the student was, like practically melting into the seat. So it's important that we are clear with the language that we use. And then I think I can't remember who said that here, but said using the technique of Billy said it. After talking to students, I asked them to tell me in their own words what I had just said. That's a really powerful approach as well. So just say, can you explain it back to me? So there's all sorts of things, but the jargon piece, the second language. I've had a student from another country who, it's part of their culture to agree. And even though it's like, do you understand what I'm saying? Really, I know is no. So it's just understanding that. And, it kind of goes back to you got to listen and pay attention. And somebody else mentioned body language is so important, so.
One of the things, Ross, I can't remember if you taught me this or I picked it up someplace else. But at the end of the session, and you do the debrief, and you're getting ready to slap him on the knee and say, "Hey, great job." I say, "I'm not getting out of the car until you ask me 2 questions," and sit there and make them ask you a question, because with that kind of platform, a lot of times they'll open up and finally go, "You're telling me to unwind, do I look tense?" Maybe they would have said that then, but it's amazing when you force them to ask you a question, what that question will be, and sometimes how basic it is that you just assumed that they had already gotten to that point.
Yeah. Hey, everyone, I think we're going to start to wrap this up. There are some other questions. There were some other questions I noticed in here that were they're good questions, but they didn't really focus on the student interview part of it, which is kind of what we're trying to keep this to. And by the way, again, in this series of webinars that we're doing with MSF, we're trying to keep them pretty focused on, we're going to focus on this topic next month. And Eric, I don't know if you can help remind me, but the topic for next month is...
We've got about 7 to pick from.
Yeah.
There's a big pool.
Yeah. So, and by the way, if you have any suggestions, if you go to, again, MSF's website, the motorsport-safety.org, and you can send a question in or a suggestion. Like if you kind of go, boy, it'd be great if you guys did a webinar all about Kevin's comment about Australian terms. Could you guys do a webinar on Australian terms? Sure. Okay. We'll get to that. I'm not sure if who we're going to get as our subject matter expert. I know some good Aussies that we can get on here for that. So anyways, feel free to make some suggestions. We are going to do more of these things. They're kind of fun for us to do, and we'll have different groups of subject matter experts on this thing. Eric, final comments on the student interview.
Best thing you can do is hang around other instructors and observe, watch, listen, and you'll pick up on some things. I can't recommend that enough. You get out there and don't have a role and just observe. There are There's a lot of great information out there, and it's in instructors' heads. It's typically not written down anywhere.
Cool. Bill?
I got to follow that. Take the interview seriously. People have really gotten hurt by not doing that, and agendas can be hidden that probably would have come out in an interview. So please take it seriously. It could really save your life.
Yeah, great point. And one of the things I'd add is kind of thinking about, again, what's the purpose of the student interview? We've all shared some ideas earlier on, but I think ultimately it comes down to it's the beginning of a better learning experience for the student. And what else are we there for? And I'd say there is kind of a little bit of a spin-off side benefit to us. It actually makes our job easier. When you're in the car at speed on the track, if you've done the student interview, your job becomes a whole lot easier. How many times have you as an instructor gone, geez, I'm not sure what I'm going to teach this student? Well, if the student has already told you during the interview what they want to be taught, it makes your job easier as well. So with that, Bill, Eric, thank you so much for sharing tonight. And I know everybody appreciated it. For all of you online, thank you for joining us. I think one of the great things is how many instructors are taking the time to be on this. And I'm sorry, people, but we're not sending you a check. You're not getting paid for this. So it's just out of the goodness of your heart that you're giving back to the sport. So that's fantastic. So thank you to all of you for being on board here tonight and online with us. And please share this and other experiences like this with your fellow instructors, because again, it makes us all better instructors, and therefore we end up with more students coming to the track and we just grow our sport, which is all way cool. So with that, everybody, keep learning, keep having fun.